Well, welcome to our humble little office here at the Universal Portal of Peace. Now, it's been a very long time since I've actually posted, and it's about time, well, in all fairness, it's long overdue time. The purpose of Universal Portal of Peace is very simple. We're here to bring a message to all of you. Doesn't matter what gender, what race, what nationality, what your sexual orientation is, what your skin color, doesn't make any difference at all. If you're breathing, or if you're not, listen up. The time for war, the time for conflict is over. Throughout history, people have talked about wanting peace and, thinking about, gee, wouldn't it be nice if we didn't have all of these conflicts, if we didn't have war? Think what we could do. Well, I remember a time, now, in my case, I remember things very well, okay, where it comes to past lives. I'm not perfect by any stretch, but I've seen a lot. I've talked to a lot of people. If you take a look at my website, you'll find that I'm very heavily involved in the UFO phenomenon and what is going on with off-worlders, with ancient races. I pay very close attention to the way that culture evolves, though I am not involved in any of the, or don't pay much attention to what is being broadcast in the news. And the reason for it is this. When you take a look at what's being broadcast in the news, most of it is centered on the negative, centered on what is going wrong with the world. People talk about overthrowing a government or completely walking away from society because society is scrambled. They talk about, and I'm sure you know people like this, that talk about the educational system where you are being, at best, misguided. So let us understand. My name is R. Keith Andrews, and I've been doing this a long time. I'm a professional psychic. I am a budding author, and I have been through an awful lot in my life. The important factor from your standpoint is what we can do as co-denizens of this planet, of this area. Now, when we talk about universal peace, we are not talking about everybody always getting along, because it doesn't happen. Look in nature. Some animals feed on other animals. Plants feed on plants. Some plants feed on animals. People are no different in that respect. People are simply part of the food chain. They are part of a huge, huge ecosystem. Many people don't like to hear about that, but it is the truth. Now, what we have to realize is when we're talking about peace, we are talking about taking the existing systems, the existing government, because it is a good system. It's misguided in many ways, as people know, including people in the government. But the idea of it is solid. When we look at the pedagogical system, the educational system in your area, it is missing certain key factors. Okay, this is clear. I'm not knocking it. We're not trying to replace it. We're trying to implement, we're trying to improve it, and we're going to improve it. But in order to do so, we need your help. And when I talk about you, I mean everybody. From the smallest child to the oldest individual, from every tree, every off-worlder, every ancient race, everybody has to participate. This is not going to happen if you just think about peace. It's a great thing to say, oh, let's think about peace, let's think about being better to each other. Well, the late Robin Williams put it really succinctly one day when he said there are thousands of plans for peace and yet no action. Well, to this effect, we still have the same problem. People talk about the military and how it is stepping overboard. Well, frankly, if people were to stop doing things that break karmic law, then we wouldn't have the problem that the military is overstepping in some people's eyes. Now, again, we're not talking about eliminating people's jobs. We are not talking about completely obliterating the current systems. People have to start taking responsibility for their own actions. When you talk about changing the world, there are 3 karmic laws, and you can compare these laws that I'm about to lay out for you with other people. Okay, take a look at them. Talk to other people about them. Compare them to the different guidelines in all of the religious texts that are out there. And you'll find every rule will fit into one of the 3. And for pity's sakes, if you find one that doesn't, let me know, because I'd love to figure out why. So the 3 laws are this, and bear in mind, each of these karmic laws are equally important, just like each of the legs on a 3-legged stool are equally important. The first law is be true to yourself. And what this means is you must take a look at what you're being asked to do. Take a look at how it makes you feel. Now, this does not mean if your parents say you can't do it, or if the law says you're not allowed to do that. It doesn't mean if you don't like the law or you don't like the request that you shouldn't do it. It means if it feels like there's something wrong, within reason, ask. There are circumstances that will create problems. As I said, parents do have a right, and quite frankly an obligation, to guide you in the right direction. Laws are made for the same reason, to keep society running. Now, when we talk about being true to you, it simply means make certain that what you're doing or what you're thinking about doing feels right, is in your personal outlook. Now, the second law is do unto others as you desire them to do unto you. And what that boils down to is, if you desire to be treated with respect, then treat everybody that you deal with respect. If you desire to be treated nicely, be nice. If you desire somebody to pay attention to what you're saying, then when they're speaking, for pity's sakes, sit back, listen, and pay attention. If you've got to ask questions, if something doesn't make sense, then obviously ask. Now, the third rule, the third karmic law, is energy out, energy in. And what that means is when you're putting effort into something, that's what you're going to get back. If you're putting effort into beating people up, you're going to get beaten up sooner or later. So focus on, when you're looking at putting energy out, focus on building. Focus on protecting the planet you're living on. Doesn't matter what walk of life you come from. If this planet dies, so do you. If there is famine in your area, whether you're responsible for it or not, doesn't really make any difference. You're going to starve. So pay attention to that side of it and start working together. Now, we do have a lot of things that are coming up. There's a lot of changes that are happening on this planet. One of the biggest ones that a lot of people think of is the issue of governmental full disclosure. Why isn't the government transparent? Well, let me ask you this, just to put it in perspective. Do you sit down with your children and tell them everything that you're up to? Do you tell them about all the ins and outs and all the different issues that you're doing, whether or not they've got any control over it or any understanding of it? Governments have to, within reason, keep things running until they figure it out. The thing that has to be understood, though, is the same laws that apply to people, to the common people that are not in the government, must apply to the people in the government. The same laws that apply to the broom pusher must apply to the CEO, to the head of a company. And for pity's sakes, and this is one of the big ones, this is one of the other big ones that we're going to be looking at through the universal portal of peace, is the issue of religious guidance. Now, virtually every religion out there talks about peace. They talk about taking care of the poor. They talk about taking care of the homeless. And yet, we have incredible temples, incredible churches that are lined with gold. They're absolutely exquisite. Kudos to the designers. But why, pray tell, if they are doing the work of their spiritual leader that talks about and says, take care of the ill, take care of the homeless, why, pray tell, would